Option, ranked choice voting for Minnesota. Raymond says they can use it the normal way or they can use it the proper way. In other words, you can vote the current polarized voting method, or you can upgrade to the new collaborative voting method. It's like Burger King. Have it your way.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the State and Local Government and Finance Committee meeting to order on this Tuesday, April 9th. A quorum is present. Vice Chair Hewitt, would you like to move the approval of the minutes for April 5th?
Madam Chair, so moved.
All right, thank you. Members, are there any comments or discussion to the April 5th minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of adoption, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion prevails and the minutes for April 5th are adopted. Good morning, Representative Frazier.
Good morning.
Welcome to the committee.
Thank you.
I will move that House File 3276 be re-referred to Ways and Means. I understand that you have a substantial amendment to the bill. I would ask maybe that you describe the bill as the amendment would be adopted so that you don't have to describe the bill twice. Right?
Sounds good.
So if you would please begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lead committee members, thank you for the opportunity to present this bill. I'll go through my opening comments as the bill has been amended, and then I do have I have a couple of testifiers and then also someone from the Secretary of State's office to talk about technical pieces if there are questions.
Okay, so let's go through the bill as and the amendment, and then we will adopt the amendment and then bring the testifiers forward. All right?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Committee members, thank you for the opportunity to bring this bill before you. House File 3276, also known as Local Voices, Local Choices Act, is a bill that will give all localities in Minnesota the same opportunity to adopt ranked choice voting for their communities if they want to. Minnesota is known for being a leader in civic engagement and democracy, but we believe that our communities can do even better. We have the opportunity to make our local elected leaders more reflective and inclusive of the communities they serve and address some of the toxicity and divisiveness harming our democracy. That's why we need this bill and the outcomes it can offer. Ranked choice voting empowers voters to rank candidates in order of preference and ensures winners with a majority or the highest support possible in a single, decisive, and cost-effective election. This is especially important for communities of color, who historically have been marginalized and underrepresented in our political system. In traditional elections, candidates often cater to a narrow base of supporters to secure a plurality of votes, leaving communities of color feeling ignored and disempowered. With ranked choice voting, candidates have to appeal to a wider range of voters, including those communities of color, to win. It also incentivizes candidates to build broad coalitions of voter support that span differences in background and political ideology. Ranked choice voting also allows for more diverse candidates to run for office without splitting the vote among them, and therefore have a chance at winning. This opens up the field to a wider range of candidates to represent a broader set of values and interests of communities of colors. Ranked choice voting has been shown to increase opportunities for women and communities of colors, which is demonstrated by the historic all-female and diverse city councils in St. Paul and Minnetonka following the election last November. Ranked choice voting is proven to be easy to use and fosters higher voter input and turnout. In Minnesota cities that have adopted ranked choice voting, such as Minneapolis, St. Paul, St. Louis Park, Bloomington, and Minnetonka, the overwhelming majority of voters have consistently said ranked choice voting is simple and voter turnout has increased since adopting ranked choice voting. Communities of color in particular have historically had lower voter turnout rates, so any method that can increase turnout and engagement is a positive step towards greater inclusivity. In ranked choice elections, candidates must appeal to their opponent's supporters for second and third choice votes. And they do that by running positive campaigns that focus on policy solutions rather than personal attacks. That's exactly the antidote we need to heal our political divisions and promote more civil, representative, and inclusive elections. This bill is necessary because under current law, only charter cities with odd-year elections, which is less than 1% of Minnesota local jurisdictions, have the ability to adopt ranked choice voting today. The Local Voices, Local Choices Act gives powers to all cities, counties, and school districts to decide if ranked choice voting is best for their community. This bill, with the amendment that will be moved forward, promotes local control and has no mandates. It allows jurisdictions to adopt ranked choice voting by ordinance, resolutions, referendum, or amending their charter, if they want to. Allows for the creation of standards for implementing ranked choice voting in both single and multi-seat nonpartisan elections. It gives the Secretary of State rulemaking authority to establish additional standards necessary for jurisdictions to implement ranked choice voting in even years and across multiple jurisdictions. And it provides for state certification of ranked choice voting equipment and tabulation systems, allowing for faster election results. This bill is all about local control, empowering Minnesota communities to make decisions about how best to run their elections. I have worked closely with the Secretary of State's office to ensure the technical language of the bill works, and I'm grateful for the efforts and the support. The amendment also reflects the collaboration with the Association of Minnesota Counties and the League of Minnesota Cities on language that works for both organizations, relating to how cities and counties work together when adopting and implementing ranked choice voting. And in your package, you will see multiple letters from those associations just mentioned, as well as other supporters of the bill.
Thank you very much, Representative Frazier. And now I will move that the A4 amendment be before us. If you would like to speak specifically to the A4 amendment so that the members know what it is, then we'll do member discussion and then bring your testifiers.
The A4 amendment specifically makes clear that this is a local choice option. Only it provides for an effective date of 2025, but only after the Secretary of State finished the rulemaking process to provide for parameters and guidance on how local elected officials can implement ranked choice voting in an efficient and effective way. And the amendment reflects negotiations and talks between the Secretary of State's office and local government, local election officials.
Thank you very much. Two member questions on the A4 amendment. Representative Nadeau.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. Good morning, Representative Frazier.
Good morning.
Thanks for bringing the bill. I appreciate it. Hopefully we'll have a good discussion today. My question specifically right now has to do with mixed election ballots, and it looks like you're trying to address at least part of it on starting right at 1.2 to 1.6 on the bill. Can you talk a little bit about how you envision, let's say a school district and a municipality, one chooses ranked choice voting, one doesn't choose ranked choice voting, how that ballot would be drafted and administered?
Representative Frazier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, if I may phone a friend, there will be, and try to speak just quickly, Representative Nadeau, there will be a rulemaking process, and some of this there will be more conversations to ensure that we have that process in order so it can be effective and efficient, but I do have staff from Office of Secretary of State here to address some of these issues.
If you'd please state your name for the record and answer the question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicole Freeman, Office of the Secretary of State. So the lines 1.2 to 1.6 cover who would be the ranked choice voting local election official, depending on which jurisdictions have ranked choice voting and which do not. Currently, there are several jurisdictions that do have overlapping. Minneapolis, for example, or St. Paul, for example, does have ranked choice voting for their city council. Also on their odd year ballot, there are school district elections. And so jurisdictions have handled it in a variety of ways, but typically, those ranked choice voting offices are grouped together, and then on the other side of the ballot right now in an odd year are the other elections, other offices. To Representative Frazier's point, one of the things that our office felt really strongly about was having the ability to do rulemaking, to work with local election officials to make sure that we get the ballot order and ballot layout and all of that right, so that it's clear to voters and that it's administrable for local election officials.
Representative Nadeau.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you. So I can take from this that theoretically, historically, what we've done in some of those cities today is one side of the ballot has been a typical, normal, traditional ballot. The other side of the ballot has been ranked choice voting. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Nadeau. Any further questions to the A4 amendment? Seeing no further questions to the A4 amendment, again, the motion before us is, shall we adopt the A4 amendment? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
The motion prevails and the A4 is adopted. to 3276 as amended. We will bring up your testifiers at this time. So the first testifier that I have is Secretary of State Steve Simon. Welcome to the committee. Always great to have you with us. If you'll state your name for the record and begin your testimony, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Steve Simon, Minnesota Secretary of State. I want to thank Representative Fraser for his leadership as well. I think the technical reason I'm before you is the rulemaking piece, because I know that always goes through this committee. And the rulemaking is necessary, we believe, to determine things like ballot layout, instructions for voters, recount procedures, and any other clarifications that are needed. And this is traditional, this is not new, this is done routinely, as to our office and other offices in like situations. As to the merits of this, I think as Representative Fraser said, this really is about choice. I, once upon a time, carried a bill very much like this when I was in the House, simply leveling the playing field. Right now we have a two-tiered system. Only charter cities, which as Representative Fraser said is about 1% of cities, have even the authority to experiment with ranked choice voting. They tend to be, although not always, they tend to be the bigger cities. And the thought here is that why not let all cities adopt it if they wish, only for nonpartisan local elections. This isn't for a governor's race or an attorney general race or presidential race. And if they like it, they can keep it. If they don't like it, they can ditch it. But why not let cities experiment with this? It's not for everyone. And support for this bill is not dependent on someone liking ranked choice voting or being yet convinced about its merits. Many people on this committee, I suspect, are convinced, and some are not and are skeptical, and that's okay. But this is about local choice and local autonomy and leveling that playing field to allow all cities and local units of government, if they wish, and only if they wish, to adopt this, and nothing is permanent. If they don't like it, they can always get rid of it. So that, in sum and substance, is why I support the bill, and thank you for allowing me this opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much, Secretary of State Simon. Next, we will have Christina Cipollini. I didn't know if I should use a Portuguese, a French, or an Italian.
Italian, Scipione.
Scipione. Thank you. If you'll state your name, your full name for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. I'm Christina Scipione, the Bloomington City Clerk. I've been managing elections since 2008 and was responsible for implementing ranked choice voting in Bloomington after it was approved by voters in 2020. I'm speaking in support of two important aspects of this bill. First, I'm speaking in support of statewide standards for ranked choice voting. Consistency is important in elections. Communities that choose to use ranked choice voting should all provide the same experience for their voters. Currently, the 5 RCV cities in Minnesota have differences in how they administer their elections. Statewide standards would create consistency and make it easier for all to understand how RCV elections are administered, which increases transparency and trust in the electoral system. Statewide standards also lower the barrier to entry for communities who want to implement ranked choice voting, but feel overwhelmed by the daunting task of creating an electoral system from scratch. The second aspect that I am speaking in support of is allowing the use of federally tested RCV tabulation software. In Bloomington, we've used RCV in 2 local elections, and we have used both tabulation methods currently available, the spreadsheet method and the hand count method. Both methods are manual processes which delay results reporting. Delayed results reporting provides room for misinformation to spread and can diminish trust in the electoral process. Software does exist that would automate that RCV tabulation process, but current law does not provide for its use. Allowing the use of RCV tabulation software will minimize the time needed to hold tabulation rounds, giving our voters the quick results reporting they have come to expect. Thank you for your time today. As an election administrator, I appreciate your consideration of this bill.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate your being here. Next, we have David Clark. If you'll state your name for the record and begin your testimony, please.
Sure, David Clark, Madam Chair, committee members. I'll make this short. I'm here to speak against this bill. Ranked choice voting is confusing, There's way too many candidates to research by getting rid of the primary process. There's a large number of spoiled ballots. And contrary to what you're hearing, how it increases so many opportunities for minorities, it actually disenfranchises minorities because their votes are thrown out or spoiled at a much higher rate than other groups. And that's not fair. Ballots are spoiled at higher rates for people of color, and thus their votes don't count at a much higher rate than other groups. January 11th of this year, the Center for Election Confidence released a report that found that ranked choice voting disproportionately decreases the representation and electoral influence of minority voters. Is that what we want for Minnesota? I don't think so. A U of M study found that in the Minneapolis 2013 election, voters who were more affluent and white turned out at a higher rate, completed their ballots more accurately, and were more likely to use all three opportunities to rank their most preferred candidates compared to voters living in low-income neighborhoods and in communities of color. That's from the U of M. That's straight from their website. In that same election, 20% of the voters had their ballots spoiled, thrown out, discarded, not counted. 20%. In a letter to the editors for the Duluth News Tribune, none other than Walter Mondale, I think somebody that all of us can respect, said, quote, "Ranked choice voting will not bring us more democracy. It favors elites who know how to work the new and complex system." That's Walter Mondale. Folks, RCV is confusing. It's complex. It requires people to keep track of way too many candidates. You can have up to 20 candidates in an election. Who has time for that? And it's clearly causing minorities to be underrepresented. I urge you to vote down this bill and really take a closer look at ranked choice voting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. We appreciate your being here and for your testimony. Are there
Madam Chair,
members?
Point of information.
Representative Kosnick, state your point.
Could you share with the committee again what organization Mr. Clark is with, or I didn't catch that, or if he's just a personal citizen, private citizen?
Sure, I'm representing Residents for Better Bloomington. We're a nonpartisan, nonprofit group in Bloomington. I'm one of the founders of the group. We started 3 years ago. We have over 2,000 people in Bloomington on our mailing list, and we're just volunteers, people that are concerned about local issues, and now, of course, this being a state issue. We're concerned about election integrity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark, for that clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Kosnick. Those are the people who have signed up in advance to testify. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to testify on this bill? Please come forward. Welcome to the committee. We're glad to have you with us today. If you'd state your name for the record and begin your testimony, please.
My name is Raymond Muse. My testimony is that ranked choice voting opens up all of it for everyone. It allows districts, states, cities, for everyone to be able to participate in our voting election system. It also, what the previous individual didn't understand was that you can go in and you can just vote just for that one candidate. It is very versatile. You can go in and you can vote for the one candidate. You don't have to make the three choices if you don't want to. But it allows for citizens to have more options, more chances, rather than just one candidate, whereas they can vote for all of them from who they like the most to who they like the least. That's how ranked choice voting works. And what a lot of people don't understand as far as the difficulty part is that it's not difficult. You can go in and still use the voting, only if you just vote for one candidate, it just simply means that that candidate, when it gets to the one candidate that you vote for, that vote fades out as well as the candidate. And then if you vote for the three, then the vote lives on and on. That's how it works. You know, but if you vote for one, then it dies out with the candidate. So they can use it the normal way or they can use it the proper way. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We're glad you're here with us today. If you'd please come forward. Welcome to the committee. When you're ready, if you'll state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
I'm Clarence Richard, and I'm from Minnetonka. I'm a big fan of ranked choice voting. We implemented it in 2021. I was very excited about getting it on the ballot in the first place. And I felt we did really quite well with it. I think we did so good at it that people wanted to repeal it. And I'm going, well, what kind of, what's going on here? So I looked at the stats, and in 2021, when we had it on the ballot and we had our first election with it, we had 50.5% higher voter turnout with ranked choice voting in 2021 than the like election in 2017. And they want to take that away. There was 3,809 more people that had voted in Minnetonka in 2021 than 2017. To me, that's voter suppression if they're trying to take that away. If we give us some incentive for people to want to be engaged, and now we're going to take that away, that is voter suppression. It was in my hometown, and I was there to stop it. So they tried to repeal it, and it came up for vote for the second time. The first time we won by 8 points. The second time we won by 18 points. Should we go for a third time and see how many more, much more popular this is? It levels the playing field. So please, let's have this go forward. I'm a veteran. I'm up for democracy. And this is the best way to represent the people. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being with us, and thank you for your testimony. Next, we'll take one more, and we have 3 bills today, so we'll take one more testimony, and then we'll move on to member discussion. Please come forward. Thank you very much. If you'll state your name for the record and begin your testimony, please.
My name is Mary Lechtenberg, and I live in Bloomington. We've had 2 ranked choice voting elections, and I just have 2 little teeny bits of data. The first one is that in Bloomington, our election numbers had been going up, trending up, and when we initiated this in 2021, our numbers went down. People who actually voted in the election, it went down. And then, and I don't have those numbers with me. And then I would also say that instead of including people on the ballot, that more people will run for the election. What actually happened in the first election, there were multiple people running, and both sides found out that if you have multiple people, they just split your vote. And so this next election, 2023, there was only 2 of the 6 electors had more than 2 people on the ballot, because both sides have only had 1 person so that they don't split their own vote. So it has actually reduced the number of people that want to run or that do run for the ballot. So thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate it. Now we'll move on to member discussion of the bill as amended. Representative Harder.
Thank you, Chair Claiborne. Representative Frazier. The one thing that I like about this bill is the local control is with the county, right? So if the county decides that they don't want to do the ranked choice voting, I mean, that's how it goes, so I appreciate that. And I'm not sure who can answer the couple questions that I have. And somebody mentioned about a delayed in reporting. Do we have any data as to how often or how long this delay is? Because frequently when people vote, they like to know the results, that night. So I'm just curious.
Representative Frazier.
Who can answer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Secretary of State's, I don't know who mentioned delay in reporting.
I believe it was the city of Bloomington.
Yeah, that was, well, and that is a part that we're working on. That's the idea about the certification of the tools to use for the reporting, but if you want to.
Ms. Freeman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Office of the Secretary of State just reports the initial first rankings on our website and would continue to do so under this bill. And we don't do any of the reallocation work. So I wondered, since we have the clerk of Bloomington here, that the clerk might be able to give an example of how things are done there.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Scipione.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. So to give you an example, in 2021, we had about 15,000 ballots that were voted and 3 races that required tabulation rounds. We were complete with all of our rounds of tabulation using the hand count method this Saturday after Election Day, so that end of the day Saturday. In 2023, we used the spreadsheet method of tabulation and had 2 races and about 20,000 ballots that had been voted. And we were able to complete our tabulation rounds and have results for those races at the end of the day on Wednesday after the election.
So that would be 2 days or 5 days?
2 days or 5 days, correct.
Depending on how many races and how many ballots.
That is correct, Chair.
All right, thank you very much. Representative Harder, did you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you, Chair Claiborne. So it does seem to be labor intensive to get this completed. And I'm just curious, because I'm always concerned about the cost of doing business at local government. So do you have any idea what the cost is to do this versus the traditional? Because I'm guessing you're not using the tabulators that it, goes in, it counts out the numbers, you compare it. Since it's hand count, what's the additional cost that your city has had to take on to do ranked choice voting?
Thank you.
Scipione.
Thank you, Chair and Representative Harder and committee members. I don't have exact costs. When we do the hand count method, it is definitely the most time intensive, and so we're hiring about 12 election judges for about 3 days worth of work. It was our case in 2021. The spreadsheet method is a much less labor-intensive method because we are using data directly from our tabulators and then doing the same steps that we would do in a hand count method, except we're using an Excel spreadsheet to do those steps. And so that was a lot less expensive. I had 4 internal staff members working on that for half a day. The tabulation software would be much faster, but it needs to be certified, and right now there aren't any provisions in state law for the certification, and so it can't be certified. So that would be the least expensive option and fastest options for cities if we were able to use it.
Thank you. Representative Harder, do you have any further questions, or we'll move on?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you, Chair Claiborne. I'm just curious about the cost, because as you're speaking, I'm thinking about the counties with the auditor treasurer that manages the elections for the county, because there would be a cost there because people, or additional cost because the people at the county would have to be available, I would guess, to be around to answer questions, to take the information, to get it to the Secretary of State. There is a fiscal note which does talk about some of the costs for ranked choice voting. It just appears at the moment, and you do more research, that the increased cost could affect some cities who wish to do this. That's just my thought on that. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to Representative Kosnick.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and appreciate the discussion with some of the testifiers. One of them brought up the question that you don't have to actually rank. You can just go in and vote traditionally. What happens, does that dilute the impact of the voter that only votes for their first choice and doesn't rank them? Does that dilute when you go to second rounds? And then how does that work?
Representative Frazier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will begin to answer the question, and if the Secretary of State staff have any more input. But I'll say this, it's to give you options. You have a choice. If you decide not to rank those voters, then you only rank one, and that is the person that you choose. I don't think it's dilution. I just think you're choosing to only rank one individual.
Representative Kosnick.
Thank you. I think I understood that to be that then their vote in choice is not added in subsequent tabulations. I appreciate the discussion from Mr. David Clark. I don't know who he is, but he said it quite well. But there's also, I just wanted to share, one testifier, the Secretary of State, said it's not for everyone. And then we had another testifier saying that, consistency is important. And if we don't We're not mandating that every city and town and election do this, so you're going to have a patchwork of elections throughout the state that I think is confusing. I think voters, in some instances, will only vote once, and others, if they exercise the option and they are given that option, but not all voters would have that, lack of consistency here, will create some confusion in our election laws, and I don't think that's the time to do that. But there was an article written in The Hill with an assistant professor from the University of Wisconsin Law School, an associate professor for Georgetown, talking about ranked choice voting, and it actually rewards more extreme candidates from either the left or the right. And they wrote that ranked choice voting makes it more difficult to elect moderate candidates when the electorate is polarized. For example, in a three-person race, the moderate candidate may be preferred to each of the more extreme candidates by a majority of voters. However, voters with far right and far left views will rank the candidate in second place rather than first place. Since ranked choice voting counts only the number of first choice votes among the remaining candidates, the moderate candidate would then be eliminated in the first round, leaving one of the more extreme candidates to be declared the winner eventually. And this has been shown in other elections, most recently in Alaska and a few other places. So I think just the testimony from the Secretary of State that this isn't for everyone, I think it's important to have a unified election system throughout the state, and that's a big concern to me, along with some of the comments on the fiscal cost and how we actually push this down to cities and towns and school boards. And so I won't be supporting it. I think there's a lot more work that needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Herr.
Thank you, Chair Claiborne, and thank you, Representative Frazier, for bringing this bill forward. You know, I am a fan of ranked choice voting. I know there's people have different opinions, but I generally find that when people don't, they're not for it, it's because they don't understand it. And that I think that ranked choice voting is very easy, and that I think it's such an interesting statement that the patchwork creates confusion. Well, you can only vote in one place, so it's not like you're going to be voting in different areas. Like, oh no, now the voting rules are different. It's what it is in my city. I don't have confusion with how I vote in my city. So whether another city does it differently shouldn't impact my ability to understand how voting works where I am. I also think about thinking that if you only pick one person, it dilutes the vote, but that's the beauty of giving somebody a choice, is that if I only have one person I want to vote for, then that's the person I put down. But if I know that my candidate might not have the momentum behind it, but I also still want to give that person my vote, it gives me the opportunity to say, if my candidate doesn't make it, who then is the next person who might best represent me? And you get to do that multiple times, which means that candidates have to actually come talk to you. What I love about St. Paul is that when somebody comes to me and they say, I would like for you to vote for me, and someone says, well, I'm already voting for candidate A, then that person says, well, I want to still talk to you about who I am, because then you get a choice to pick me as your second choice, and I would really appreciate that. And so it forces candidates actually to do a better job in talking to voters, because it says, well, if I'm not your first, you should keep talking to me, and everybody should come talk to me, because I'm trying to convince you to be my second and my third person. And so truthfully, it actually gives voters more information, instead of right now our system is, oh, you're voting for X already? I'm out of here. Don't go back to that door. We've written it off as saying they're already voting for a certain individual. So I just think that our issue with extreme candidates, we already have extreme candidates now when we don't have ranked choice voting. I mean, we are all seeing that when our members retire, a more extreme individual comes in and we are now more polarized. This is not going to actually address that situation. And so I really hope that we all understand the importance of giving people a choice, the importance of ensuring that candidates do their job, and the importance of ensuring that people have the ability to choose the best person for them in a way that doesn't force them to choose the candidate that doesn't represent them, but is the most likely to win. And so I would encourage people to vote for this bill. Thank you.
I have been asked to remind people to not bring personalities or impugn anybody else's comments, or to be very respectful of each other's opinions. So I just want to remind us to do that. Representative Nadeau, you were next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you again, Representative Frazier. I'm one of the people that are skeptical of ranked choice voting, but I've always tried to keep an open mind in trying to figure out how we can do a better job, have more engagement. Minnesota has a long history of increasing, voter turnout. And we've talked quite a bit back and forth, about the extreme nature. I think that our big problem is kind of with this hyperpolarization of a two-party system, we view each other as like mortal enemies. And that I think is our problem. I don't know how ranked choice voting is going to help that. I think society needs to work on that regardless of our election system. But I fear a couple of things, and then I have one question about the repeal. I fear that instead of electing the most popular candidate, we're going to end up electing the least unpopular candidate. Can you talk to that a little bit and maybe set my mind a little bit more at ease?
Thank you.
Representative Frazier, and I'm just asking, if I didn't see a repealer, were you referencing a repealer?
Well, I have a question on repealing I'll get to it, Madam Chair.
All right.
Thank you.
Representative Frazier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Doe. Yeah, I mean, the idea is that, and this kind of goes back to what was just stated by Representative Hurd so eloquently, and thank you, is that now candidates have to go and talk to a broader base of folks. So even if it's not my first or my second choice, I know I ranked that individual candidate because I had a conversation with them, or at least I did research because they are on the ballot, and they reflect at least some of the values that I reflect, and I believe they're going to represent those values. To me, that is a facilitation of how we get rid of some of this hyperpolarization that we have now. And I agree with you. We're so polarized. Some of us view folks as mortal enemies. But when you have a conversation, there's a quote that I like to say, it's hard to hate someone up close. Right. And that's when you have those conversations, when you build those connections and find those commonalities. And there's more that unites us than divides us. That will lead us to a better democracy and better representation and more inclusivity.
Yeah.
Representative Nadeau.
And thank you, Representative Frazier. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this for me right now, and I'm going to keep an open mind on this. It's a complex system. It's a little bit harder to understand, but I agree with Representative Hurd. I think that over time, I think we can figure it out. But I wonder if that's the best. If that's a way that's going to help build trust in a system that we're losing track of. But I'm going to ask, this is basically on line 5.15 and down to probably the end of the section 6.6. This is the enacting legislation that cities can use. If they're a charter, they can amend their charter. They can have a referendum. They can do it by ordinance. So how would a city, we heard from the city of Bloomington, and the city elections official loves it, and there's a member of the city that doesn't like it. I'm assuming that they're a charter city, and it would be difficult to change that charter. But the bill is kind of silent in the process that people would go through to repeal it. And what I fear is that all of a sudden a local unit of government, comes in and they say, okay, we're going to go to ranked choice voting, and it becomes for whatever reason. I've been on a lot of local government bodies, and the next election comes and the next body says, we're getting rid of it. What is the process for repeal? Is if in your mind, if it's by ordinance, could the next city council by ordinance just then eliminate it? Or should there be something in here that spells out how it can be repealed if somebody wanted to?
Representative Frazier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And right now it lays out the ways by ordinance referendum to actually put it in place. I know with charter cities right now, there are processes that are currently listed within the charter as a way to appeal. That's why we saw two potential repeal votes that came up that were defeated, soundly defeated. So there are processes for charter cities, and I believe in most statutory cities there are processes that are available as well. But those are conversations we can continue to have, as you talked about, and figuring out the best way to do it. And I think the most important thing to remember about this, it does leave it up to the local communities to figure out what works best for them. So if it's implemented and then it's not working, that community can decide that, you know what, this isn't doing what we wanted to do. We're going to go a different route. And I think that is the beauty of this.
And Representative Nadeau, I would refer you to line 5.17 in the bill where it says the ranked choice voting method may be repealed by the same method used for adoption.
And thank you, Madam Chair, and that was my exact question. So if it's passed by a voter referendum, can a city ordinance
I see.
then repeal it?
I see. I understand your question better now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Representative Freiberg. We finished? I'm sorry, did you have one more?
I just wanted to request a roll call on this vote.
Thank you very much. A roll call has been
Thank you.
requested. Representative Freiberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for carrying this, Representative Fraser. I know you've put a lot of work into it. There is a fair amount of misinformation there about this, or just a lack of understanding about kind of how it would work and what it would do. You know, there was questions about how some people might vote for only one person, and kind of an implication that that could lead to diluted or spoiled ballots. I mean, in my mind, all that means if they vote for only one and that person doesn't go on to a second round, all that means is the candidate they voted for didn't win. And that happens to 40 to 50 minus 1% of voters in every election. So this is no different than what we currently use for elections. I don't believe that this leads to extreme results in any way. I mean, I can point to several races in jurisdictions around Minnesota that use ranked choice voting where what many people would consider to be a more extreme candidate did not make it through the ultimate rounds, and leading to a more mainstream candidate getting elected. I mean, I suppose extremity is kind of in the eyes of the beholder, so maybe I'll avoid mentioning that, but if you're interested, I can tell you which races I'm thinking of. And finally, I live in a statutory city. In my mind, there's no reason why the city I live in should be prevented from adopting this method of voting if they want to, while other cities do it. So again, all this is an option. I think this is a good bill. It makes sense. It emphasizes local control, and I'm glad to support it. So thank you again for carrying this.
Lead Nash.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to the author or to the secretary or somebody that can answer this for me. I'm not there yet, but the question that I have is, let's say in a county, we'll pick Carver, there are cities that do and do not choose to do this, but yet will commonly elect a school board member or a county commissioner or whatever. If the goal, as Ms. Scipione said, is to provide the same experience, well, they're not. It's not the same shared experience. So I'm just trying to figure out how mechanically, and if we could get somebody from the Secretary's office to describe how the rulemaking would go to facilitate this. If the city of Mayor chooses to do something and the city of Waconia does not, how does that vote tabulation work for one of the races that I just described?
Ms. Friedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Representative Nash. So how that would work and how it currently works in some jurisdictions that are charter cities that have odd year elections is that the tabulation equipment is able to the tabulation equipment is programmed to tabulate each race, sort of with its own rules. So in a similar way to how we have our partisan primary, that's an open primary, but you can only vote in one column, our tabulation software is programmed to note that. And so in this situation that you described, if a city race was ranked choice voting, but a school district that spanned multiple jurisdictions was not, that city race would look like a ranked choice voting race, and the city election race, the school board election race would look with the typical vote for 4, vote for 3, however many seats are up on that election. So the piece that I think we are interested in standardizing across the state, if there is ranked choice voting, a mixed election ballot, is the ballot format, the layout, and the instructions that would be required to be clear about how a voter should treat certain offices versus the other. And again, I'm a St. Paul resident, and so I currently have this on my ballot where there's a ranked choice voting, some ranked choice voting offices, and then there are other offices where I choose 3 or 4 for my school board races and other things.
Lead Nash.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my members have said pretty much everything that I was going to say. I don't think it's simple. Waiting 2 to 5 days for the results of an election is not simple. It is actually quite complicated. And I don't believe that that paradigmatic shift is worth the effort. I know that there are people who feel passionately about it. In my 10 years in serving the people of Carver County, I have not had one person who's a Carver County resident ask me to do this. Not one. So I'm voting no. I believe we do have a roll call in place for this.
Roll call has been requested.
So thank you, Madam Chair. I'm open to listen more, but once again, when we do our job and listen to the voices of the people in our districts and our counties, and I have yet to have anybody darken my door saying, please, please, pretty please do this, I find it very difficult to support it. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And Ms. Freeman, before you leave, on the rulemaking aspect of this bill, and just to rulemaking, because we've heard discussion this morning about exhausted ballots and spoiled ballots and the confusion between the two, I'm just asking that as we are looking at the rulemaking process, if we would please consider, because I didn't see it in the bill, the educational aspect of what is and what is not and how the process actually functions. Even within the discussion of our own members today, I've heard confusion about that. So I would like to make sure that when we move at whatever time or whatever community would express this, that we would please make sure that there is an educational component in the rulemaking process. And with that, there has been a roll call requested. Representative Frazier, would you like to have closing comments?
Yes, I will, Madam Chair. Thank you. I think this has been a good conversation, good debate. I appreciate all the comments. I really do. I never take any of these things personal. I think this is a part of democracy. You know, what I've heard from folks is the concern or the protestations that folks from their communities haven't asked for this. Well, this bill does a great thing. Your community doesn't have to adopt this, and you can continue to have those conversations with your community. But for those communities that have asked for this, like Representative Freiberg said, I was a city council member once. My community wanted to explore this statutory city. We could not. Now we will have that opportunity, and that's important because community members in my community have asked for this. So I want to be able to tell them, you can do this if you want to, but we'll explore it to see if it's best for our community. And that's the most important thing about this bill. It gives folks that option to explore something different, to be able to do it if they want to. So I appreciate the conversation. I urge a yes vote on this.
And Representative Frazier, I'd like to just thank you for the opportunity that you have afforded me to have private conversations with you about this bill. And I appreciate your commitment to work with me going forward as this bill moves through the body.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And with that, I will ask for the roll.
Chair Cleavorn?
Yes.
Chair Cleavorn, aye. Vice Chair Hewitt?
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure we all have a clear understanding of the motion before us. The motion before us and the motion that I will move is to re-refer this bill as amended to Ways and Means. And then I'll ask if you'll start the roll anew.
Chair Cleavorn?
Chair votes aye.
Chair Cleavorn, aye. Vice Chair Hewitt?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hewitt, aye. Lead Nash?
No.
Lead Nash, no. Representative Bonner?
Aye.
Representative Bonner, aye. Representative Berg?
Aye.
Representative Berg, aye. Representative Freiberg?
Yes.
Representative Freiberg, aye. Representative Hansen?
No.
Representative Hansen, no. Representative Harder? Representative Harder?
No.
No. Representative Herr?
Aye.
Representative Herr, aye. Representative Joy?
No.
Representative Joy, no. Representative Koznick?
No.
Representative Koznick, no. Representative Nadeau?
No.
Representative Nadeau, no. Representative Newton?
Aye.
Representative Newton, aye. The ayes are 7, the nays are 6.
With 7 ayes, 6 nays, the motion prevails and House File 3276, as amended, is on its way to Ways and Means. Thank you. Next, we will have Representative Cagle come before the committee. And Representative Cagle, because we have another bill, may I ask everyone who is leaving the room to please leave as quickly as possible and as quietly as possible?